In today's video, I am super excited to talk to Dr. Michael Greger, MD. Dr. Greger is not just a physician who has positively affected countless lives. He is a New York Times bestselling author and internationally recognized speaker on nutrition. He is also a founding member and fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Dr. Greger recently published his new book, How Not to Age, which I thought was right down our alley. So without further ado, let's talk to Dr. Greger about how not to age.
Hey.
Hello, Dr. Greger. It is such a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. How are you today?
Good, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Dr. Greger, for those who don't know you, you call yourself a lifestyle physician. Tell us what motivated you to become a physician and to ultimately practice lifestyle medicine.
Oh, it really all goes back to my grandmother, actually. She was, when I was just a kid, my grandma was diagnosed with end-stage heart disease, sent home to die. She already had so many bypass surgeries, she basically run out of plumbing at some point. Confined in a wheelchair, crushing chest pain. Her life was over at age 65. But then she heard about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers, and what happened next is detailed in Pritikin's biography. It talks about Frances Greger, my grandmother. They wheeled her in, and she walked out. Though she was given a medical death sentence at age 65, thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet until age 96, to continue to enjoy 6 grandkids, including me. So that's why I went into medicine, why I practiced lifestyle medicine, why I started the website nutritionfacts.org, why I wrote the book How Not to Die, why all the proceeds from the sales of all my books are donated directly to charity. I just want to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family.
That's pretty incredible. Thank you. Now, you just mentioned your book, How Not to Die. You just published a little while ago a new book, How Not to Age, which I heard you say was the biggest research project you had ever taken on in your life. And it shows. The book is packed full of incredible science-based information. But before we dive deeper into the book, you have a survey in that book where people were asked how long they would like to live. Tell us a little bit about that survey. I find that quite interesting.
Oh, yeah, interesting. People were asked, how long do you wish to live? And given the offered the choices of 85, 120, 150, or indefinitely. And most people, about 2/3, said that they would prefer to only live to 85. But when the question was reframed as how long do you wish to live in guaranteed mental and physical health? Then the most popular answer switched to an unlimited lifespan, right? This raises the concept of health span, the period of life spent in good health, free from chronic disease and disability. I mean, what's the point of living longer if we can't enjoy it vibrantly?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something we are slowly realizing, is that we can hopefully have a healthy lifespan without being bogged down by disease. But so many of us, that's what we're used to seeing. We're seeing older people, our relatives, friends, relatives, that are living decades with some sort of disease that could possibly have been prevented, which is what you talk about in your book. So let's dive into the book. You know, the first chapter I found so fascinating. In the first chapter, you talk about the 11 pathways of aging. And I think many of us who are interested in extending health span have heard about some of the things, but maybe not as much in detail as you talk about them. So if you don't mind, I would love to cover the 11 pathways of aging. What are they? How do they affect us? And what can we do to positively impact them?
Yeah, so in part 1, I identify the 11 most promising pathways for slowing the sands of time, ending each with practical proposals for targeting them naturally with diet and lifestyle changes. So we're talking about boosting the anti-aging enzymes and hormones, AMPK, FGF21, sirtuins, telomerase, while suppressing the pro-aging enzymes and hormones, mTOR and IGF-1, decreasing glycation, inflammation, oxidation, and senescence, while preserving autophagy, our telomeres, and slowing the epigenetic clock. I know these are all kind of fancy-sounding scientific terms, but I really do try to break it down to easily understandable, doable, practical takeaways.
mTOR is one that I hear mentioned quite frequently,
Oh,
but I didn't
good.
understand what that was.
Oh,
So if you don't mind diving a little bit deeper into mTOR, what is mTOR? And
yeah.
again, what can we do to positively affect it?
mTOR is an enzyme recognized as a major driver of aging. Perhaps more so than any single anti-aging strategy, mTOR inhibition disrupts a panoply of degenerative processes, explaining why the mTOR blocking drug rapamycin is currently the most effective pharmacological approach ever devised to target aging. Non-pharmacological approaches to slow the so-called pacemaker of aging include the restriction of certain amino acids, such as methionine and leucine, protein restriction in general, and full dietary restriction. So to help slow this aging pathway and encourage people to follow all the steps I talk about in boosting a different enzyme that counters mTOR called AMPK, and also striving to stick to the recommended daily intake of protein, which is 0.8 grams per healthy kilogram body weight, or 0.36 grams per pound, which translates into about 45 grams a day for the average height woman, 55 a day for the average height man, and then choosing plant-based protein sources whenever possible.
You brought something up I wanted to talk about later, but since you brought it up, let's talk about that. I think it's something that frustrates so many of us, that there are so many different experts with so many different opinions. And it must frustrate you as well. So lately we hear more and more, especially from menopausal experts. One comes to mind, Dr. Mary Claverhaven. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's made quite a name for herself as a menopausal expert. And she really is very much pushing more protein, especially for women in menopause, saying we need 1.6 grams at least per pound
Ridiculous.
of body weight. Now, what do you say to that? So her reasoning is that the Women's Health Initiative has shown that women who have higher protein have less frailty.
When it comes to protein and aging, less may be more. Reducing protein intake, meaning restricting protein intake down to recommended levels, is the only thing I can find that could help block all 11 of the aging pathways, so boosting NAD, improving immunity, decreasing oxidative stress, inflammation, insulin resistance, as well as the cancer-promoting growth hormone IGF-1. Surprisingly, there's no benefit to adding extra protein to the diets of older men and women in terms of muscle mass, muscle strength, or physical performance. Right? So we're not talking about observational evidence, but like the Women's Health Initiative, we actually put it to the test and randomize people to extra protein or placebo. It just doesn't work. Instead, what the excess protein that most Americans get causes is a drop in the pro-longevity hormone FGF21, a drop in testosterone, a worsening of the age-accelerating hormone mTOR, so we should strive to stick to the recommended level of 0.8 grams per healthy kilogram body weight.
Okay. So no evidence to show that extra protein is going to fight sarcopenia.
Well, there's evidence, but but if you look at the latest meta-analysis,
Okay.
then there's positive studies, there's negative studies. You put all the studies together, and overall, no benefit adding extra protein, older men and women, in terms of muscle mass, muscle strength, or physical performance. It just doesn't work.
Okay. So how do we fight sarcopenia? Just exercise?
Exercise, resistance exercise. Use it or lose it. I talk about all the other muscle protective things. There's certain foods we can eat to improve muscle mass, muscle strength, physical performance, muscle quality. It's all in my Preserving Your Muscles chapter in How Not to Age.
Do you feel for women to fight sarcopenia and for women to fight osteoporosis, exercise is efficient, or do we also have to supplement with hormones, estrogen in particular?
I do not recommend women take postmenopausal hormone therapy. And that's because I think the risks clearly outweigh the benefits. But look, it's your body, your choice, and you should know what those are. And so I go into great detail in the book talking about the risks and benefits, and then it's up to you to make your own decision. But in terms of muscles, the regular resistance exercise is really the most important thing. In terms of bone strength, it's lower limb strengthening exercises and balance training, because falls is the greatest source of age-related fracture risk, not bone mineral density.
So you are against hormone replacement therapy?
I'm not against hormone replacement. What I am in favor of fully informed consent. But it's up to you.
Of course. But again, this is one, again, why it's so frustrating because there are so many different opinions. But let's get back to the 11 pathways of aging. One of them is autophagy, which I find quite fascinating. So you seem to be a proponent of calorie restriction or intermittent fasting. Tell us why that is.
Not for autophagy. So autophagy doesn't really. So autophagy is the kind of the primary system for cleaning the body from the inside out, clearing away accumulated cellular debris that may contribute to the aging process, kind of like the cell's housekeeping process. But it takes days to maximally ramp up autophagy, days of water-only fasting. And that's too long to go unsupervised. You hear all these stories about, oh, you just, time restricted feeding or skip breakfast or something to boost autophagy. That's in rodents, not in people. And so I don't recommend calorie restriction for boosting autophagy. What I do recommend is aerobic exercise, 60 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity significantly boost autophagy. There are food components that suppress autophagy, which we should try to stay away from, such as acrylamide, which is concentrated in potato chips and French fries, so we should stay away from those. And then there are other food components that actually improve autophagy, boost autophagy, like spermidine, and the antioxidants in coffee that help, kind of help your cells take out the trash. So I encourage people to drink 3 cups of regular decaf coffee a day, as well as consuming at least 20 milligrams of spermidine by incorporating foods such as tempeh, mushroom, peas, and wheat germ into their daily diet.
Wheat germ, is that something somebody can take if they're gluten intolerant? Probably not, I would
Oh,
imagine.
probably not. No. So then they'd have to do, so eat more tempeh, eat more white mushrooms.
And I've heard you say people that live longer lives usually have been found to have higher spermidine levels. So it is sort of the predictor of longevity.
Of thousands of longevity compounds that have been determined, the single, the small subset with the fewest side effects, spermidine has the longest documented lifespan extension, period.
Wow. What about spermidine supplements? Yay or nay?
Well, spermidine supplements are just wheat germ in a pill, wheat germ in a capsule. And so it's like, why would you pay like 20 times more when you just buy it in bulk? It's super cheap.
So fasting and calorie restriction, what pathway does that affect?
So it's an AMPK activator. By restricting calories, you're restricting protein, and so that can have benefits in terms of suppressing mTOR. So there's lots of benefits of, for example, early time restricted feeding. So restricting your daily feeding window to 12 hours or less, but critically important is in early. So it's in the morning, not in the evening. So if anything, you skip supper, not breakfast. Try to move as many calories earlier in the day as possible. The largest meal of the day should be breakfast or lunch. This exact same food eaten in the morning is less fattening than the same food, same number of calories eaten in the evening, causes less of a blood sugar spike, less triglycerides. So if you're going to eat junk food, eat it in the morning. Your body's better able to handle it.
But don't eat it at all.
Good, that's even better.
Now, I want to talk to you about glycation, because that is something I think is often misunderstood as well. I know that my audience knows about glycation as far as it affecting the skin, but we often hear that sugar is what causes glycation. And so people are cutting out fruits and even vegetables because they don't want skin aging. So talk a bit about glycation. What causes it?
Yeah, so advanced glycation end products, these so-called AGEs, are gerontotoxins, meaning they are age-accelerating toxins implicated in a wide spectrum of age-related diseases, and they are formed endogenously in our bodies at body temperature, especially if you have high blood sugars, but their buildup in tissues is largely determined by the AGEs we eat or smoke. And so we should stop smoking and avoid the very worst foods, in fact, in the highest glycation end product foods like bacon and hot dogs, and in general, cook high protein foods at relatively low heat, high humidity methods, boiling and steaming, rather than broiling or frying. And really should try to stick to the lowest AGE foods, which is fruits and vegetables. Choose raw nuts and seeds over roasted or toasted nuts and seeds, as well as choosing lower glycemic load foods to keep our blood sugars in check. So we shouldn't be, eating white bread.
But fruits do not cause glycation.
fruit, if you take diabetics and randomize them to increase their fruit intake or decrease their fruit intake, who has better long-term blood sugar control? Those told to increase fruit intake.
Good to know. Now, since we are talking about skin aging, I know what your recommendation is for the number one recommendation to prevent skin aging, but share it with us because there's a lot of controversy around that topic right now too.
Well, I mean, there's manufactured controversy about everything these days because of the internet, right?
Yeah.
Clickbait. You tell people to eat broccoli, no one buys your silly product. But if you tell people some contrarian nuttiness, people out of curiosity will click on it and maybe you'll make money scamming people. Well, in terms of skin, the single most effective way to slow the signs of skin aging is protect your skin from sun damage. Though other things like ambient air pollution can certainly contribute. In terms of diet, the carotenoid nutrients in certain colorful fruits and vegetables are deposited in the skin, offer the skin not only this kind of healthy glow in both light and dark skin, but the nutrients in greens, for example, can improve skin elasticity, collagen status, facial wrinkles, perhaps due to this kind of inside-out sunscreen effect. Drinking extra water improves dry skin and roughness symptoms. Honeybush tea or South African herbal tea can reduce eye wrinkles. Cocoa powder has been found to increase skin thickness, elasticity, reduce wrinkles. Almonds can also decrease wrinkle severity, perhaps due to increasing skin UV resistance. Ground flax seeds can improve skin smoothness. Soy foods can improve skin elasticity, wrinkles. I go on and on. Yeah, there's all sorts of things we can do to protect our skin, but about 90% of visible skin aging is due to sun exposure. So that's number one on the list.
So sunscreen, like I said, there is quite a bit of controversy around that. And I have heard you say that right now, with the knowledge we have, mineral sunscreens are the safest bet. Now,
they're the only safe bet, as far as we know. At least here in the United States, the Food and Drug Administration has removed GRAS status, meaning safety status, from all chemical sunscreens. They're not generally recognized as safe anymore. Only the two mineral sunscreens, zinc and titanium-based sunscreens, are considered to be safe until further testing is done.
Okay, so you're talking about the FDA, so we don't know those that include European filters, Asian filters, because they do have very different filters than we have in the United States. But obviously we don't know that because that testing.
Well, I mean, if FDA, who's often beholden to industry, isn't willing to consider these safe, then the European Union, the European Food Safety Authority, is usually more conservative in terms of on the side of science, and so I'd be surprised if they consider chemical sunscreens to be safe.
A study I read in your book that I found so fascinating was about inflammation, which obviously we know is a big contributor to aging as well. And there was a study that was done in mice first, if I recall correctly, and then also in humans, where they applied lotion to their skin. Yeah. And tell us about that study. I found it fascinating.
It's a really fascinating study. So our skin barrier, the barrier function of our skin tends to decline with age. So the thought is, well, maybe that might be the cause of this increase in inflammation as we get older, because what normally is excluded from the environment by our skin can kind of seep through and trigger inflammation within our bodies. So what they did is basically rubbed, nude mice with Vaseline and found that indeed, wow, their inflammatory markers went down. And so, all right, let's test it in people. And so they took elderly individuals and had them apply just regular, emollient skin lotion, and saw a significant decrease in, inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein. So there's a simple thing to do to decrease inflammation in your body as you age.
It's just applying lotion to your body twice a day.
Yeah, easy.
That's pretty incredible. So that shows us, we think of the skin as something superficial, and taking care of it is a superficial thing. But it is an organ, and it needs to be taken care of.
Largest organ in the body for those who aren't obese.
Yeah. Now, aside from protein reduction, which you say can affect all 11 pathways of aging, so it's not so much reducing protein, but reducing certain amino acids, methionine and leucine. So could we be eating just as much protein as let's say Dr. Mary Claiborne recommends, but get that plant-based, or would that still be affecting the 11 pathways of aging if I'm cutting down on methionine and leucine?
The benefits of caloric restriction appear to be maybe due exclusively to protein restriction, and the benefits of protein restriction may actually just be due to restricting particularly problematic amino acids like methionine, which are found concentrated in animal foods. And so even if you kept your protein intake the same, but just switch from animal protein sources to plant protein sources, like legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, you would significantly decrease methionine intake, significantly decrease methionine levels in the blood. And whether or not that would be sufficient, I mean, that would certainly be the right thing to do. But I still encourage people to get down to the recommended level, as well as choosing plant protein sources. You can do it two different ways. We'd like to maintain protein adequacy while keeping methionine intake as low as possible.
Okay. Now, methionine being an essential amino acid, meaning we have to take it into our diet, and it obviously has benefits in the body. There are no side effects of cutting it down and having a very small amount of it?
We need enough, but you can get enough by eating 0.8 grams per 1,000 kilogram body weight. And so, it's essential, meaning that we can't make it, animals can't make it either. And some amino acids have better or worse effects on the body. And some we want to get more of, some we want to get less of, and methionine is the most toxic amino acid in isolation. And so we should try to minimize our intake, but obviously it's an essential nutrient, and we have to get enough, but you can get that by getting adequate protein intake. So even plant protein has methionine in it. It has to. All plant proteins have all essential amino acids. And so it's not a problem of getting too little methionine as long as you're getting enough protein.
Now, since we're talking about amino acids, you just said plant proteins have all the essential amino acids. There's often a discussion around collagen. We know for collagen, we need glycine, hydroxyproline, and proline, and some other cofactors. Can we get all of those from a plant-based diet?
Now, collagen is the only incomplete protein there is in the food supply, missing tryptophan. You would literally die. It's the only protein. You would die of protein deficiency if you just say, like, if you lived off a diet of Jello, you would die of protein deficiency because it's missing an essential amino acid, the only protein in the food supply that's actually incomplete. You can get all the amino acids you need by getting them from healthy sources like whole plant foods.
Okay, so all the building blocks we need to make collagen, we can get them all from plant foods.
Absolutely. Okay. And including things that help with collagen production, such as vitamin C, which is found almost exclusively in the plant kingdom.
Now, one thing I like that you mentioned over and over in your book is that it's not all or nothing. You said, and you had quite a few studies where people just made tiny little changes and they added literally years to their life. So give us just an example of that, because I think it can be frustrating for people thinking, oh my God, I have to change my whole life.
No. One does not need to make drastic changes. It's not all or nothing. Even basic, common sense lifestyle factors can literally mean living a decade longer, not smoking, not being obese, regular exercise, more fruits and vegetables. And it's never too late. Never too late to start eating healthier. Never too late to start moving more. We really do have the power.
And one doesn't necessarily have to be 100% plant-based. It's just cutting down on some of the processed animal products, correct?
We should try to eat primarily plants, not necessarily exclusively plants.
Okay. Now, one thing I also hear you say quite frequently is it's not always what we don't get in the diet, but we get too much of. And one of the things you mentioned is sodium.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I actually have a bottle right here with electrolytes in it that have 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Now, I know that's going to just shock you. Tell us why. I wasn't aware that sodium, so I work out a lot and I take a lot of saunas. And so I think, more salt is better. Tell us why sodium is such a problem.
So sodium is the number one dietary risk factor for death on planet Earth. Kills more people than any other dietary component, right? So, it's the worst thing about humanity's diet, excess sodium intake. We're eating about 10 times more sodium than we evolved to eat. Obviously, we evolved no salt shakers, no Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so, people were running around, in equatorial Africa for our ancient ancestors for millions of years before there was ever a sports drink, right?
That's true.
They got their electrolytes the way we were meant to get our electrolytes, which is from food, right? We can get all the sodium we need from food. We don't need to add salt. And in fact, it's the single worst thing one can do for health and longevity.
So this is all sodium. Even we always hear sea salt is good. It's all
No,
sodium.
no, sodium, bad. Now, I mean, potassium salt has no sodium. That's potassium chloride as opposed to sodium chloride. That would be fine. In fact, I encourage people to switch to a salt alternative like potassium salt, potassium chloride, or in the very least a 50-50 blend, which you wouldn't even taste the difference over. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad you brought it up.
So this is not just
I would
this is
pour
not just
your
for people.
electrolytes down the toilet.
So this is not just for people concerned with high blood pressure, sodium in
Right.
general.
Sodium
Okay.
in general, even if your blood pressure is perfectly fine, it negatively impacts artery function. We think through a pro-inflammatory and pro-oxidative mechanisms. So, for example, if you inject vitamin C into the skin, you can actually reverse the negative effects of a salty meal on kind of the microvasculature, these small blood vessels, you want to cause exacerbations of autoimmune diseases like asthma, inflammatory bowel disease, psoriasis. You give them more salt. And that's the way to do it. Has a pro-inflammatory effect. Cut down on salt.
Okay.
And the way we do that is primarily get rid of processed foods. That's where all the sodium is. Unless somebody like you who's actually eating salt, which would be a terrible idea.
Okay, good to know. Now, how do you feel about olive oil? That seems to be the new thing in the longevity world as well. How do you feel about olive oil?
I mean, so compared to what, right? What are we going to do? So if we have a tablespoon of olive oil has 120 calories. All right, so 120 calories of olive oil, a tablespoon, versus 120 calories of what? If it's 120 calories of blackberries, it was like a couple cups of blackberries. Well, it's not even close, right? It's the most calorie dense food on the planet, oil in general. And so you want a lot of nutrition for all those calories, and you're just not getting it because you've thrown away all the water soluble nutrients in olives by just extracting out the oil. Now, if you're comparing that to lard, if like, what am I gonna, then obviously olive oil is better. Compare it to tallow, compare it to coconut oil or palm oil, pumpkin oil. Yeah, olive oil is better. But why not? I encourage people to get their macronutrients, their fat, their protein, their carbohydrates from whole food sources.
The claim with olive oil is that it is anti-inflammatory.
Phytonutrients, right? Olives are fruits, right?
Yeah.
And so by olive oil you can smell, you can see the phytonutrients, right? Extra virgin olive oil is minimally refined, right? They're not they're not deodorizing. They're not, they're all they're doing is basically kind of smushing the olives, and so you get all of the fat soluble nutrients, including these polyphenols, which are beneficial. But you can get beneficial polyphenols you can get more kind of power for your calorie by getting them from whole food sources.
Okay. Now, if one is not worried about calories and wants to dress their salad.
Pumpkin seeds, walnuts, avocado. There's no reason to use oil.
So you don't use salad dressing on your salads?
I use salad dressing, but I make salad dressing with tahini, which is just sesame seed paste, or I make it with cashews, or I make it with whole food, and I get nutrition with my calories, and as opposed to a stripped down version.
Sounds good. Tahini sounds good. I'm going to try that. Now, you have, at the end of your book, you talk about, so you already have the Dr. Greger Daily Dozen, which is an app everybody can get, and it's a great app to follow. But you also talk about your anti-aging 8. Tell us, what is the most important anti-aging out of the 8?
Unfortunately, we got less than a minute. It's a lot to cover in a few seconds. But yeah, no, I encourage people to check out How Not to Age from the local public library, and or go to nutritionfacts.org. And if they have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out and contact me.
Okay, so I guess we just have to read the book for the anti-aging 8. Well, I appreciate your time, Dr. Greger. Thank you so much, and thank you for everything you do. I know you're affecting many people's lives positively.
Fantastic.
Thank you for being with us.
Keep up the great work.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Dr. Gregor as much as I did. Dr. Gregor, of course, is a busy man, so unfortunately we only had 30 minutes. And I didn't get to ask everything I wanted to ask or cover everything I wanted to cover. But I would highly recommend, if you're interested in extending healthy lifespan, to read Dr. Gregor's book, How Not to Age. I will link it down below in the info box. Also, as I mentioned in this video, it can be quite frustrating that even amongst experts, there are such varying opinions, which is why I think it is quite important, regardless of who we follow, to still do our own research. I hope you enjoyed this video and it was helpful. Any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I always love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, bye.